Check that man's bag. He's stealing from us. The words tore through the air like a blade, sharp and cold. Heads turned instantly. The quiet rhythm of the city paused as curiosity tightened its grip. The afternoon sun glared against the polished glass of the Sterling Crown Hotel, its reflection shimmering over a line of luxury cars and passing taxis. At the top of the marble staircase stood Clara Vance, the hotel's general director, flawless posture, hair pinned perfectly, confidence radiating from every movement. Her hand, steady yet accusatory, pointed at a man who had just stepped out of a black sedan. He stood still, Marcus Reed, tall, calm, his hand resting lightly on a single black suitcase. His white shirt was crisp, his beige trousers unwrinkled, and his eyes unreadable. There was no panic, no denial, just quiet observation like someone who had already seen this story before. Clara's voice carried again, louder this time. This establishment doesn't tolerate theft. Security, check his belongings before he tries to leave. A murmur swept through the small crowd forming on the sidewalk. Tourists paused. A couple clutching shopping bags slowed, and a man walking his dog stopped mid-step. The air thickened, turning judgmental. Did he really steal? Someone whispered. Another said softly, he doesn't look like a thief. Marcus said nothing. He didn't raise his voice or plead innocence. His calm unsettled everyone more than any protest could. His voice finally came low and even. If you believe I've done something wrong, finish what you started. That single sentence carried a weight that silenced even the whispers. Clara's heel struck the marble as she descended, each click echoing like a verdict. You heard me. Open the bag, she said to the guards now flanking him. Do it now, phones lifted. A teenage girl whispered to her friend, this is crazy. He just arrived. Someone started recording. Someone else started streaming. What began as a simple accusation had transformed into a public trial. Marcus's gaze never broke. He didn't move an inch, and that quiet defiance was louder than any shouting could have been. One of the guards hesitated before touching the zipper. The crowd felt it too, that twinge of doubt, that question forming unspoken in everyone's mind. What if they were wrong? Then, as if remembering their authority, Clara's voice sliced through the moment again. Men like him think they can walk in here, pretend they belong, and fool us. But not today. Her tone wasn't just anger, it was power mixed with prejudice. And the audience knew it. The murmurs grew louder. A young woman near the curb stepped forward, holding her phone high. He hasn't even entered the building, she said. You accused him the second he got out of the car. That's not right, Clara shot her a glare. Mind your business. He's not a guest here. But the young woman didn't back down. Then what's that? She asked, pointing to the card Marcus still held. That looks like a room key to me. Clara snatched it from his hand and held it up for everyone to see. This? She said, laughing coldly. A fake. We don't issue these to strangers off the street. The word fake cut through the crowd like lightning. An older man in a gray suit, Mr. Harper, a longtime guest, stopped at the foot of the stairs, confusion flickering across his face. He'd seen Marcus before somewhere, but he stayed silent, uncertain, watching the spectacle grow. Marcus remained unshaken. You've already decided, haven't you? Clara smirked, her confidence blooming again in the crowd's half-belief. Security, take him off our property. Phones went higher. The hotel's doorman froze, unsure which side to stand on. The pianist inside the lobby faltered mid-note, the melody cutting off into uncomfortable silence. The atmosphere around the Sterling Crown wasn't ordinary anymore. It was charged, heavy, almost electric, and as Marcus stood there, still and silent, every camera on that sidewalk turned toward him. Then his phone buzzed. He answered it calmly. Yes, he said softly. Activate protocol. The person on the other end, a voice clear, professional, and composed, replied instantly. Understood. Recording initiated. Incident logged. Clara blinked, caught off guard for the first time. Protocol? Who are you calling? Marcus looked at her, unblinking. Someone who keeps records better than you. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The shift was small but unmistakable. The guards hesitated again, glancing at one another. The confidence in Clara's face flickered. Don't play games with me, she snapped. Security, remove him now! But the crowd had grown bolder. A middle-aged woman holding groceries shouted, You can't just accuse someone in public without proof. Another voice chimed in. This isn't how you treat guests. The line between bystanders and witnesses was gone. Now everyone was part of something larger, a clash of arrogance and quiet power. Marcus didn't move. He didn't shout. His silence was starting to mean something, to everyone watching. And when Clara turned to call the police, certain she still controlled the moment, no one realized that the man she was accusing already had the entire hotel system at his fingertips, because the story that began with an accusation was about to turn into a revelation the city wouldn't forget. The moment Clara reached for her phone, the crowd stiffened. Everyone could feel it. That silent warning in the air, the sense that something irreversible was about to happen. "This is Clara Vance," she said into the receiver, her tone cold and clipped. "Director of the Sterling Crown. I have a suspected thief refusing to leave the premises. Send officers immediately." A ripple went through the audience. Someone gasped. Another whispered, "She's really calling the cops?" Marcus didn't flinch. He stood perfectly still, his phone still in hand, his eyes locked on hers. The young woman who'd spoken earlier shook her head in disbelief. "You're calling the police on someone who hasn't even stepped inside? You're profiling him." Clara ignored her, waving off the murmurs. "This is hotel property," she said loudly, as if volume could restore the power slipping from her grasp. "Anyone recording this is trespassing." No one stopped recording. The phone stayed up like a sea of glass eyes, each one ready to immortalize what came next. "Enough," she barked at the guards. "Search his bag." The taller guard reached forward, his hand hovering over the zipper. Marcus's calm voice stopped him. "Touch my property," he said softly, "and you'll be explaining that to the legal team later." The guard froze. Clara glared. "You think threats will save you?" Marcus's tone didn't rise. "Not threats, documentation." The word documentation landed with strange weight. It didn't sound like fear, it sounded like confidence. Controlled, precise, and unnervingly certain. "Who do you think you are?" she demanded, stepping closer. Her perfume clashed with the heat of the afternoon. "Some con artist trying to bluff your way into luxury?" Before Marcus could reply, an older voice cut through the air. "Clara." Mr. Harper had stepped forward now, his gray suit catching the sun. "You should stop," he said. "This doesn't feel right." Clara's jaw tightened. "With respect, Mr. Harper, this man is deceiving us. Look at him. Does he look like someone who belongs here?" That sentence hit like a slap. The crowd fell quiet. A woman pushing a stroller muttered under her breath, "That's what this is really about, isn't it?" Marcus took a slow breath. "People like me, you mean?" Clara blinked. "Don't twist my words." "I'm not twisting them," he said evenly. "You've already tied them into a noose yourself." The crowd murmured louder now. Phones edged closer. Someone's livestream comment section was flooding. Hundreds of watching eyes, thousands of real-time hearts, all waiting for what would happen next. Eli Tran, the young front desk clerk, came running down the steps, clutching a clipboard. He looked terrified. "Ms. Vance, please, maybe we should—" "Quiet!" Clara snapped. "I don't need your opinion." She snatched the clipboard, pulled out the keycard Marcus had handed him earlier, and held it up for everyone to see. "This fake card?" "Proof enough." Eli's voice shook. It's not fake, ma'am. I checked the reservation system myself this morning. It's active, suite 1100 under Marcus Reed." Gasps. Then silence. For a split second, Clara's perfect facade cracked. Then came the denial, sharp and defensive. "You must have made a mistake." Eli swallowed. "No, ma'am. I didn't." Clara's fury surged. "Then you're fired." But Eli didn't back down this time. He took a step closer to Marcus. "If telling the truth cost me my job, then so be it." The crowd erupted. Shocked voices, outraged murmurs, even applause from somewhere near the back. "You're humiliating an innocent man." Someone shouted, "Apologize." Another yelled. But Clara only grew louder, desperate. "Enough of this nonsense. Security, remove both of them." The guards didn't move. The first shifted awkwardly. The second stared at Marcus, his brow furrowed. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "maybe we should wait for the police." Her glare could have cut stone. Now, but the command no longer carried weight. The balance had shifted completely. Marcus's phone buzzed again. He lifted it calmly. "Nia," he said, his tone cool and steady. "Yes, sir?" Came the voice on the other end, crisp, clear, and professional. "Escalate protocol," Marcus said. "Record every word. Mirror every video." "Understood," Nia replied. "System escalation active." Digital backup engaged. The crowd fell silent. Even Clara's expression faltered. "What are you doing?" she demanded. Marcus met her eyes. "I'm making sure the truth survives this afternoon." She laughed, brittle and forced. "You think that'll scare me?" "No," he said softly. "But it'll expose you." That single word, expose, hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike. Every phone, every witness, every silent heartbeat in that crowd felt the shift. Clara tried to regain control, but her voice came out uneven. "You can't threaten me with technology. I've managed this hotel for years. I built its reputation." Marcus's gaze didn't waver. "Then you should know whose name is engraved on the deed." The tension was suffocating now. Mr. Harper's eyes narrowed. He looked at Marcus again, really looked. Recognition flickered. His lips parted, but no sound came. Clara folded her arms, refusing to retreat. "Bluff all you want. When the police arrive, we'll see who you really are." Marcus didn't answer. He just stood there, silent, calm, an immovable weight against her collapsing authority. And for the first time, the crowd began to suspect that maybe, just maybe, this man wasn't the intruder. Maybe he was the one who truly belonged. The marble steps gleamed brighter as the sun shifted westward. The air felt heavy, waiting, almost trembling with what was about to be revealed next. And when Marcus finally moved, just one step up the stairs, the crowd collectively held its breath, sensing that the truth standing before them was far greater than any accusation. The air around the hotel thickened like a storm waiting to break. Marcus stood tall on the second step, his presence alone commanding silence. The crowd's energy shifted. What had begun as whispers of accusation was turning into quiet anticipation. Everyone could feel that something monumental was about to unfold. Clara's phone buzzed in her hand, but she didn't look at it. Her focus was locked on Marcus, her voice trembling with frustration disguised as authority. "If you don't leave right now, I will make sure you're blacklisted from every luxury hotel in this city." Marcus's expression didn't change. "You can't blacklist someone who built the list." The words struck with quiet precision. The crowd rippled, confused murmurs overlapping in disbelief. Clara blinked, trying to process what he'd just said. "Built? What list?" she demanded, but Marcus didn't answer her. He turned slightly toward the growing sea of onlookers. Dozens of phones captured his every move. Dozens more streamed it live. Every breath he took seemed to echo across the street. A boy on a skateboard whispered to his friend, "He's not scared at all. He knows something." Clara took another step down, her heels sharp against the marble. "You think you can intimidate me?" Marcus's voice was calm but laced with quiet steel. "No, I don't need to." Clara's mask of confidence was slipping now. She waved her hand toward the guards. "Do your job." Neither of them moved. Their eyes darted between Clara and Marcus, uncertainty painted across their faces. The older of the two finally said, "Ma'am, he's not resisting. Maybe we should let the police handle it." "I said now," Clara screamed, her voice cracking. And in that moment, she lost the crowd completely. A woman near the edge of the sidewalk shouted, "You can't just bully someone because you feel like it." Another voice joined in. "This isn't about theft, it's about power." Phones angled closer, catching every flicker of panic in Clara's eyes. Her once impenetrable confidence was unraveling before the world's gaze. Marcus lowered his phone slightly. "Nia," he said again, his tone calm, deliberate. "Confirm recording." "Confirmed," the voice replied. "All audio, visual, and witness data stored in 3 locations. Legal documentation already in progress." That line made even the guards take a step back. Clara looked bewildered, her voice rising in disbelief. "Who are you? Some tech guy trying to sound important?" Marcus tilted his head slightly. "You'll find out soon enough." The tension reached its breaking point when she suddenly stepped forward and grabbed the handle of his suitcase. "If you won't open it, I will," she hissed. The crowd gasped in unison. "Don't touch his property." Someone yelled, "That's assault!" Another voice shouted from the back, but Clara didn't stop. Her fingers clutched the zipper, shaking now, not from power but from fear disguised as control. Marcus's voice dropped lower than ever before, steady and commanding. "Let go." Clara hesitated, her knuckles whitening. "I said let go." The sound of her bracelet clinking against the metal handle was deafening in the silence that followed. Slowly, her hand trembled and slipped free. Marcus adjusted the suitcase handle with quiet dignity. The crowd exhaled all at once, as though releasing the breath they'd been holding since this began. Clara looked around, realizing no one was standing with her anymore. Her allies had vanished. Even the hotel staff watching from inside had turned away. Mr. Harper stepped closer, his voice firm but calm. "Clara, stop. You're humiliating yourself. Don't you dare lecture me," she shouted. "You don't know what he's doing." "I know exactly what he's doing," Marcus said softly. "He's letting you reveal yourself." That sentence sliced deeper than any shout could. The young mother with the stroller nodded, speaking up through the tension. She accused him without proof, in front of everyone. "That's not justice. That's arrogance," the crowd murmured their agreement. Marcus's phone buzzed once more. "Proceed," he said quietly. "Confirmed, sir." Nia's voice came back, unwavering. "System escalation complete." Media tracking initiated. All live streams mirrored. Clara's lips parted in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Marcus's eyes met hers, and the quiet power in his voice made every word sound final. "I warned you. You turned this into a stage. Now the whole world is watching your performance." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then a roar of whispers rolled through the crowd. Someone muttered, "He's recording everything." "Hive," Clara's breath caught. "You think anyone cares about your little stunt?" "They will," Marcus said. "Because you've made this more than a mistake. You've made it history." Mr. Harper ran a hand through his silver hair, realization dawning. "Marcus Reed. I've heard that name before." Clara turned sharply. "Don't entertain his lies." But Harper's expression shifted, recognition turning into shock. "You're the majority investor in Sterling Holdings, aren't you?" Clara froze, her face draining of color. The murmurs turned into gasps. A man at the back shouted, "Wait, he owns this place." Marcus didn't confirm it, not yet. He let the silence breathe, the tension build like thunder gathering on the horizon. "I don't make accusations," he said slowly. "I make decisions. And you're about to experience one." Clara stepped back, her confidence crumbling. "You can't do anything to me." Marcus raised his phone. "Nia," he said calmly. "Initiate employment review for Clara Vance." "Understood," came the response. Verification initiated. The phone's recording caught everything, the trembling in her voice, the sweat glistening at her temple, the realization that her authority was slipping through her fingers like sand. "You're bluffing," she said, her voice breaking. Marcus looked at her unflinching. "You should pray that I am," and with that, he stepped one more stair higher, above her, above the crowd and above every ounce of doubt that had hung in the air since the moment she opened her mouth. The power had shifted completely now, and what was about to happen next would turn the chaos of that afternoon into something unforgettable. Clara stood frozen, her pulse loud in her ears, her confidence stripped away piece by piece. The crowd had grown thicker now. Tourists, pedestrians, even people from the cafe across the street had drifted over. Everyone was watching. The whispers had turned into commentary. "She's finished," someone muttered. "This is going viral," another added. "I can't believe she's still talking." Marcus remained still, one step above her, a calm center in the storm she had created. The silence between them was alive, charged and unrelenting. Clara swallowed hard, forcing a shaky laugh. "You're pretending," she said, her voice cracking. "You hacked the system, didn't you?" "You planted your name somehow?" Marcus didn't reply. His phone buzzed and Nia's voice came clear and precise. "Employment review complete. Clara Vance, director credentials terminated. Building access revoked." The crowd erupted. People gasped, shouted, clapped. Someone laughed out loud, a quick, disbelieving sound that spread like fire through the witnesses. Clara stumbled backward a step. No, you can't do this. This isn't real." She glanced down as her smartwatch vibrated violently. On the glowing screen, the words "access denied" flashed in red. She stared at it as if the letters might rearrange into something else. But they didn't. Mr. Harper exhaled slowly. "It's real," he said. His voice carried both authority and disappointment. "I warned you." Clara looked around helplessly. The guard stepped back. Even Eli, the young clerk she had tried to fire, couldn't meet her eyes. The world she had controlled for years had collapsed in less than a minute. Marcus's voice was low, steady. "You wanted the truth? Here it is." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek matte black card edged in gold. The crowd fell into hushed anticipation. With deliberate calm, he pressed it against the glass scanner at the hotel's main door. The light blinked green instantly, and the massive doors slid open with a soft mechanical sigh. The sound was small, but it hit like thunder. Someone near the front gasped, "That's executive access." A teenager holding his phone whispered, "He's the owner." "He owns it." Clara's mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked from the card to Marcus, her mind clawing for a reality that made sense. "You can't be." "I can," Marcus interrupted gently. "And I am." His gaze swept across the crowd. "This hotel, this company, this very ground you stand on, it all bears my name. I built it from nothing. And today you tried to throw me out of it." The words landed like a sentence handed down from a higher court. Gasps and murmurs rippled outward, turning into applause that grew louder with every second. People raised their phones higher, filming every detail, every flicker of emotion on Clara's face. Mr. Harper shook his head slowly. "I should have known." Marcus Reed, the founder of Sterling Holdings. "You redesigned this entire chain. I've read about you." Marcus nodded slightly, not out of pride, but finality. "And she," he motioned toward Clara, "forgot what hospitality means." Clara's voice cracked. "You can't fire me like this in public." Marcus's reply was calm, almost sorrowful. "You humiliated someone in public. It's only fitting you understand how that feels." The applause grew louder. Some people cheered. A few laughed in disbelief. A woman wiped her eyes. "Finally," she whispered. Someone stood up. Clara's shoulders sagged. Her eyes darted around, desperate for sympathy, but found none. Everyone was recording, everyone watching. The control she'd wielded through fear had turned into the spectacle of her undoing. Marcus didn't move closer. He didn't need to. His presence filled the space between them like quiet thunder. "You accused me without proof," he said, his voice a calm blade. "You called me a thief in front of strangers. And when the truth stood right in front of you, you doubled down. That's not management. That's arrogance," she tried to interrupt, but he didn't let her. "Power isn't about control," he continued. "It's about restraint. Something you've forgotten." The young mother with the stroller spoke again. "You made that man defend his dignity on the street. Now you see how it feels." Clara's face flushed, her eyes glistening with angry tears. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I was protecting the hotel." "No," Marcus said softly. "You were protecting your ego," the crowd roared. Phones tilted, voices overlapped, the sound of justice and disbelief mixing into one unstoppable wave. Eli stepped forward, standing beside Marcus this time. "Sir," he said quietly, "I'm sorry. I should have spoken sooner." Marcus gave him a nod. "You did when it mattered." He looked back at Clara. "Your employment was terminated the moment you forgot what respect looks like." Her smartwatch vibrated again. Another access denied alert. Her face drained of color. "You can't do this." Marcus's voice was steady, final. "I just did." The applause that followed wasn't planned. It started softly and spread through the crowd, one person after another until the whole street was clapping. Some cheered, others laughed, but all of them felt the same electric satisfaction of witnessing power reversed, justice revealed. Clara backed away slowly, the weight of her downfall settling in. "You'll regret this," she whispered, but no one was listening anymore. Marcus turned toward the hotel entrance. The crowd parted instinctively, the way people move when they recognize authority. Not demanded, but earned. He paused at the top of the steps, the doors opened behind him, light spilling across his shoulders. "You thought silence meant weakness," he said quietly. But silence was the test. He glanced back at the crowd, and today she failed. A wave of cheers broke out again, echoing down the block. Marcus adjusted the strap of his suitcase, then stepped through the glass doors of the building that bore his name. The doors closed behind him with a whisper. For a long moment, the crowd remained still, watching the empty staircase where the accused had become the victor, where arrogance had turned to ash, and where silence had spoken louder than any defense ever could. And outside, under the fading sunlight, the once proud director of the Sterling Crown stood alone, surrounded by 100 recording lenses, all capturing the exact moment power met its reckoning. The sun was dipping lower now, the light softer, but no one moved. The crowd lingered as if afraid that leaving would break the spell of what they had just witnessed. A man accused, a woman exposed, and an entire city block turned into a courtroom without walls. Marcus stood just inside the lobby, his reflection caught in the glass. He could still hear the echo of applause outside. For a moment he didn't speak. His silence wasn't for effect, it was for balance. The world always moved too fast, he thought. Accusations came easy. Apologies never did. Behind him, Eli lingered near the door. His voice was hesitant. "Sir," that was. Marcus turned slightly. "Necessary," he said. "Not for me, but for everyone watching." Eli nodded slowly. "She'll never recover from that." "She'll learn," Marcus said quietly. "Maybe not today, but eventually." Outside, Clara hadn't moved. Her phone hung in her hand, the screen dimmed to black. Around her, the crowd had shifted from anger to awe to something quieter, pity. Even those who had recorded her downfall couldn't look at her for long. Pride always looked smaller once it shattered. The young mother with the stroller approached her carefully. "He gave you every chance to stop," she said softly. "You just wouldn't listen." Clara didn't answer. Her throat was too tight for words. Mr. Harper joined the woman. "You were good at what you did once," he said. "But somewhere along the way you stopped seeing people." He turned toward the doors. "That's what destroyed you, not him." Clara looked up, her voice shaking. "Do you think he's proud of what he did? Humiliating me in front of everyone?" The woman shook her head. "He didn't humiliate you. You did that yourself. He just refused to be quiet about it." Clara's knees buckled slightly as she sat on the edge of the steps. Around her, the city moved on. Buses roared, horns blared, people laughed down the street. But her world had gone soundless. The screen in her hand flashed again, a new message. Employment record terminated. Exit interview scheduled automatically. For the first time in years, Clara Vance felt small. Not because someone had taken her title, but because she had used it to crush others. And now the weight of that misuse had come full circle. Inside, Marcus walked deeper into the lobby. The pianist had resumed playing, a soft, steady tune that filled the marble hall. Employees along the reception desk straightened nervously as he passed. Some bowed slightly. Others looked down, ashamed they hadn't intervened. He stopped at the center of the floor and turned to Eli. "Call a meeting for the staff in the morning," he said. "Everyone," Eli blinked. "Everyone, sir?" "Yes," Marcus said. "They need to understand what kind of company this will be from now on." Eli hesitated, then smiled faintly. "People out there are still recording, sir." Marcus looked toward the glass doors. "Let them. Truth deserves witnesses." The crowd outside was slowly dispersing. Some were talking to each other, shaking their heads. Others still stared at the glass facade, replaying what they'd seen. The young woman who had spoken up first, Maya, was still live on her stream, her voice calm now. "That's what justice looks like," she said softly to her camera. Not loud, not violent, just real. Her viewers flooded the comments with disbelief and applause emojis. Someone wrote, "That's the best twist I've ever seen in real life." Another said that man didn't just win. He taught everyone watching something. As evening fell, Clara rose from the steps. Her pride was gone, replaced by quiet exhaustion. She walked away slowly, her red heels tapping hollow against the concrete, the sound fading until even that was gone. Inside, Marcus stood near the front desk, looking up at the massive chandelier overhead. He thought about the irony. The same marble steps where she'd tried to disgrace him were the ones he had commissioned years ago, back when he was just starting the company, sleeping in his car to save money for payroll. Naya's voice came softly through his phone one last time. "Sir, all files have been logged, mirrored, and archived. Would you like the public statement drafted?" Marcus hesitated. "No, let the moment speak for itself. Sometimes silence says more." "Understood." He ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. The lobby lights reflected against the polished floor, golden and clean, untouched by the chaos that had erupted outside. He exhaled slowly, not in relief but in reflection. Justice didn't always roar. Sometimes it arrived quietly, carried by dignity and restraint. As he headed toward the elevator, Eli called after him. "Sir?" Marcus paused. "Why didn't you stop her earlier? You could have ended it sooner." Marcus turned his head slightly. "Because sometimes people need to hear themselves fall apart before they realize they were wrong." Eli nodded, unsure what to say. Marcus gave a faint smile before stepping into the elevator. The doors closed gently behind him, sealing the moment like the end of a story the whole city would talk about for weeks. Outside, the last rays of sunlight touched the hotel's name engraved in gold, the Sterling Crown. For everyone who had witnessed that day, the name meant something new now, something that couldn't be erased by scandal or gossip. And for those who had recorded, streamed, or simply watched in silence, one truth had settled deep in their hearts. Power was not loudness, nor title, nor money. It was the courage to stand still in the face of lies and let the truth reveal itself. The streetlights flickered on. The crowd was gone. The world returned to motion, but the story of Marcus Reed and the Sterling Crown lived on. In every retelling, in every clip replayed online, in every whisper about the day a man accused of theft stood silent and reminded everyone watching that dignity needs no defense. Because justice, when it finally arrives, doesn't shout. It simply stands tall and lets the world see.